And eventually, just a heads up, it only allowed me to write like 20 of these. So after 20, I'm gonna have to be typing them in or just reading them to you. We'll see how it goes. All right. So 13, never wait for people who are wrong to acknowledge it. Time is of the essence. Never wait for people. If a lot of us get satisfaction in people admitting that they're wrong about something, you're gonna you're gonna get old very quickly, and not get a lot of stuff accomplished if you're waiting for people to acknowledge that they're wrong. Get over it. Time is of the essence. You're waiting on them to admit that they're wrong. Meanwhile, they're living their life scot free, like not carefree, and you're still dwelling on them not, or trying to get them to eventually admit that they're wrong. All right. Now, as I was saying this, I feel like there was another way of looking at it, but it may have slipped my mind. So let me just repeat it again, and maybe it'll come to my mind. Never wait for people who are wrong to acknowledge it. Time is of the essence. And I guess so. This is what I thought about. If you are wrong, admit it fast. If you're wrong about something, admit it fast. All right. Because the more the buildup that you wait to admit that it's wrong, then the more that person feels that your apology or your admittance of wrong or admittance of guilt, whatever it may be, they feel like it should be even more dramatic. If you're wrong about something, oh yeah, I was wrong about that. It almost gives you it almost provides like a superhero aura around you. Like, like, oh, this person's they're that confident they could just admit that they're wrong like that. There's no sweat up there. Oh yeah, I was wrong about that. Shows a lot of confidence. So there's two sides of that one. Um, Number 14, strong people get the least amount of care, concern, help. Strong people get the least amount of care, concern, and help. Um, it's just how the world works. It's just how the world works. People tend to cater to the people that need help more than the people that, oh, you're strong enough, you're tough enough, you got enough money, you got this, you got that, rather than showing the same amount of consideration that they would show for somebody who needs extra help. Now, this can impact us in various ways. I don't feel like I need to go into too much on this one, but I do think that this is something, if you are a strong person, something for you to understand, for you to not dwell on, not to get resentful, because that resentful is going to eat you up inside more than it's going to impact anybody else, only going to hurt you. But just more so to understand, more so to understand. And for the people that may be on the other side of it, to maybe gain some level of understanding as well, because a lot of times we assume that somebody else, oh, nah, they're good, they can handle this. They always figure it out. They'll always figure, and you don't realize that, well, they always figure it out because maybe they ain't used to getting a lot of help, but you know what I mean? So there's a bunch of different sides to look at that. But that's just something that I've always noticed, that strong people get the least amount of care, concern, and help. It just is what it is. All right, number 15. Ego. So I wrote this one a little bit differently. I wrote this a little bit differently. And I am gonna stop after this one and take a look at the chat a bit. So I feel like I'm up here just talking, like not engaging with y'all. I miss y'all. But ego is a mub. That's what I really wrote. And then I was like, ego is a monster. And sometimes you need to be a monster, but sometimes that monster can be a monster to you and be extremely detrimental. But ego, the ability to control our ego, right? It's almost, you guys, are you big Game of Thrones people? I don't know if you're big Game of Thrones people, but it reminds me of the dragons in Game of Thrones. How you have to get them under control, and that's how ego can be. Ego can work in your best. It can work in your favor, or it can lead to your demise. It's that powerful. But see, that's the thing about it. Most things that can be very useful to us, whether it's money, whether it's all different types of things, the things that are most valuable to us, there's usually a side of the other side where it's like if you misuse it. if you don't, if you abuse it, all these different things, that they can put you in a tough position. So ego is a monster, but like I said, sometimes monsters are necessary. So just got to be able to control that beast, control that dragon, and it could be one of your greatest assets. All right, let me get to the chat a little bit, man. I miss y'all. See, so Ant wrote, ooh, I like this, Steve. Ego is a monster that eats everything we feed it. Hold on, y'all having combos with each other, man. I feel like I'm out of the loop. Um, Ego is a monster that eats it. Mama Lay, shout out to Mama Lay. I agree totally with number 14. I think being able to manipulate one's ego is a good thing in oneself. Being able to recognize what makes you difficult around other people. Ego. Yeah, I agree. I agree. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Matter of fact, let me just get back to y'all already. Y'all all right. All right. So a bunch of that. I just didn't want to leave y'all hanging, but y'all good. Y'all make sure y'all hold it down with each other for me. Ew, ew. Sorry to interrupt the video. We got a new challenge. 20,000 by the end of April. We fell short in March, but we're gonna get our goal this month. Thank you all in advance for those that are gonna continue to like, subscribe, maybe even leave some comments and let us know how we're doing. And on that note, let me let y'all get back to the video and I'll see y'all soon. Ew. While I'm getting through these, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate it. And I know it's taking a bit of time here, so I definitely appreciate y'all. All right, let me get back to these. What number are we on? All right, so number 16. Let's get to number 16. So this is similar to the no gas, but nobody owes you anything, especially if you can't provide it to yourself, or you can't provide it yourself. It's this was a little bit of a different take on it than no gas, and as I find myself reading over these when I woke up today and I was reading over this was one that I got stuck on as far as thinking about, how would I explain this one? What am I really trying to say? What does this one actually mean to me? And what kept coming to mind was the second part of it, especially if you can't provide it yourself. I used to always think, and this is going to be a little bit of a different, maybe this actually just came into my mind now, but I used to always be very critical of Jay-Z. I used to be very critical of Jay-Z. Like, yo, he's got this influence. He should be doing this. He should be doing that. He should be giving this. He should be not acting phony, not making decisions just for $1. He should be all these different things. I used to be very critical of him, and I still am, but just not maybe in a public setting, or I don't think that I am as much, because I realized that I had to humble myself, where it's like you never know what you would do if you were in somebody else's position until you are in somebody else's position. We could think what we're going to do. It comes up all the time when we talk about slavery. Yo, if I was a slave, they would have had to do it. Yeah, right, bro. Like sometimes I got to tell myself, like, now, I don't know. Look, man, shoot, man. I don't know, whatever. But I had to remind myself, like, yo, instead of being so critical of Jay-Z, why don't I just, now y'all may be looking at this. Matter of fact, I don't even need to preface it with anything. Why don't I just become Jay-Z? Why don't I just become better than Jay-Z? Why don't I just become more influential in a more positive way than Jay-Z? Then instead of telling Jay-Z what Jay-Z should be doing, instead of complaining about what Jay-Z isn't doing, I could just do it myself. And that may be outlandish for a lot of y'all, but for me, it kind of just put me in the best headspace to say, like, how am I going to be critical of somebody else because of the position that they're in and what they can do, but I'm not even in that position myself? Maybe I should shut up a little bit and work to get into that position, and then speak from a sense of my experience, speak from a sense of me actually being in that position and doing that thing, rather than being critical of them. So nobody owes you shit, especially if you can't provide it yourself. You could look at this from a job standpoint. You think you need a raise. All right, well, if your job sees your value as X amount, if you can't provide yourself either with another job, or if you can't provide it directly to yourself, that X amount, then you may want to rethink things and work to actually add that level of value, so that you can either provide it to yourself by the way of making the money yourself, or by way of, let's say, getting another job that can pay you that amount. So I was kind of like I said, I was a little bit. I don't know exactly when it came to mind. It was very clear, but then when I was realizing, like, okay, how am I going to explain this? It was a little bit cloudy for me, to be totally honest. 17. Heroes are appreciated more after their demise. So first and foremost, if you saw the thumbnail, then you also probably you noticed that there was a picture of my hero, one of my heroes on the thumbnail as well. And it was random, I guess, for a lot of people because people may not know that today is also Malcolm X's birthday. And I can remember when the Malcolm X movie, Spike Lee dropped Malcolm X, and in the beginning of the movie, I think it's at the beginning or at the end, it's when Nelson Mandela's in the classroom with the kids in Harlem, and they're all saying, like, it's May 19th, kids. So the teacher saying it's May 19th, kids, and Malcolm X's birthday. And then you hear the kids saying, I am Malcolm X, I am Malcolm X, I am Malcolm X. And it's just a very powerful scene in that movie. And it always stuck out to me. It actually still, I don't know if y'all can see the goosebumps, but yeah, you can see the goosebumps. When I think about it now, I just remember that feeling that I had as a little kid and me standing up, like in my mind, probably in, my room. I probably didn't do it in front of anybody, but I said, like, I am Malcolm X. And I realized by studying Malcolm X's life, obviously I wasn't alive when Malcolm X was alive. And as I got older and older and just studying him and being more and more drawn to him, and I think that you go through different phases of studying people, especially your heroes, just like your parents in a lot of ways, where, your parents, they're your superheroes. Then they could be your greatest, you could feel like they're against you at a certain point in time. And then when you get older, you realize like you kind of humanize them and realize like, okay, like, hey, they're humans like us, like I hold my parents to these things. Now I'm an adult, you gain a certain level of appreciation. You just go through different phases. And I realized, I got to the point with Malcolm X where I was able to go through a lot of different phases and not just worship him and not just um, look at him as that, but also to be critical, also to understand and want to search for understanding of different things that he did wrong, different things that he could have done better. So therefore, I could learn from those things. And it just made me realize, like when I think about Malcolm X, he died broke, couldn't put a roof over his family's head. He committed so much to this particular group, the Nation of Islam, and he just wasn't appreciated. And it still bothers me. I'll be totally honest when I hear the minister Louis Farrakhan speak about Malcolm X. And in my opinion, I'm looking at it from a standpoint where it's like you contributed to what happened to Malcolm X in one way or another, with the words that you said. Words are powerful. And I just, have these thoughts to where it does bother me, when we speak so highly of people, but don't appreciate them and while they're here. If you're a hero, most heroes, in my opinion, you're always going to be appreciated more after your demise. It doesn't even matter. We talked about, um, I don't know. I don't know. Most honorable heroes, I'll say, most honorable heroes, because just uh, there was an example that came to mind. Um, but just different people in your life, the most heroic people, and maybe perhaps it's because they're moving us from a current way of thinking to getting to that next level. And it's very hard to appreciate that next level until you actually win and then you receive the spoils of getting to that next level. So a lot of times those spoils don't come, whether it's an actual prize, whether it's a monetary prize, or whether it's just a different way of thinking that unlocked you to see the world from a different perspective. A lot of times that doesn't come until long after your demise. So if you have goals and aspirations of being a hero, and really making a huge impact in this world, I think that there also has to be a certain level of understanding that you're not going to be appreciated, or your greatest appreciation will come after you're here. Just to be totally honest. So But I may be wrong with this one, but this is just something I've just kind of noticed with my experience. Number 18. I think we're on number 18. Yep. Protect the minds of your women. If not, they'll be your greatest nemesis and become your greatest downfall. Protect the minds of your women. And let me let's just to desensitize the situation a bit. When I say your women, I'm not saying the women that you're in control of. Your generations, the women in your generation, the women in your family, um, the younger women in your family that are coming up, whatever it may be. I realize, and this is not to. This actually shows the significance and power, in my opinion, of that women possess. Women are movers and shakers. Uh, women, when you think about different things, even in history, um, usually that's probably there's nothing that can make a man weak and vulnerable like a woman. That should have been a life lesson. When I think about different stories, I used to be into Greek mythology a lot, and I think about Helen of Troy and that story. And if you guys have ever seen the movie Troy, didn't based on the research that I've done, it didn't happen exactly like that, but it's whatever. All right, you get the gist of the story. But just what men are willing to sacrifice for a woman, what men are willing to put on the line, that just shows that there's nothing. I don't think that there's a greater power out here than feminine energy from a woman. I'll just be totally honest. It could. You look at the situations that a lot of powerful men have put themselves in compromising positions because of women, but that's not that's not what I mean as far as what I'm saying here. But I just kind of wanted to, I guess, to preface that to not make women defensive who are hearing this, but for you to really understand how powerful you are. But then for men, I do consider us as leaders. um, and everybody leads in different ways. We don't have to go into that whole category, whatever. Like, let's just be honest. You need both people leading, but from certain aspects of it, I am very conservative from that standpoint, and I do think that men have an obligation and responsibility to lead. Not necessarily, it's not a privilege; it's more of a obligation. I mean, you should look at it as a privilege as men, but more of an obligation and responsibility. It's not just, oh, I get to sit on this throne. No, it's like you need to make sure that you're responsible enough and honorable enough because you're going to be put on this throne of leadership. So it's just I hope you guys are understand what I'm saying and can appreciate it. But protecting the minds of your women, if not, they'll be your greatest nemesis and become your greatest downfall. And I didn't say controlling the minds, but I intentionally wrote protecting, because I think we've seen in culture and society where if we don't protect certain aspects of women, whether that is us standing on the things that we're supposed to do as men, because if we don't form that level of protection, and go with me, I'm kind of I just want to remind you guys, these are just my thoughts. So I may even change some of these as I'm having the combo with y'all. But what I was trying to really get at, and it's probably just best to be just direct as possible instead of doing all this beating around the bush that I'm doing to try to not be offensive. But I think you guys, I just want you to really understand it and appreciate it. So that's why I'm doing that. But I just look around in society right now, and y'all know I blame the men for our lack of leadership. But you see how different things can occur. And if women are misled, whether it's the women's movement that misled us with different civil rights things or this thing or whatever it may be, if women are misled, um, I think that that can put you in a position where you're constantly having a back and forth and going to war with a different type of ideology, just based on the lack of protection. So now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if protection is the right word. It felt like the right thing to say. initially, even though some people may take offense to it. But I just think that it's very important for us as leaders to make sure that we're protecting the people that we are responsible in leading. Because if we don't protect their minds, and if we don't um, properly lead properly, right, with being a benevolent leader, um, then we're going to put ourselves in a position where our greatest strength is going to become our greatest nemesis, right? Our greatest strength, our greatest asset is going to become our greatest nemesis. And when our greatest strength becomes our greatest nemesis, that's when that downfall is coming, just in my opinion. So I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but these are just some things that I've noticed, and hopefully I'm articulating them well enough for what I mean in my mind to come across to you all. So give a little grace. Give a little grace. That should be on here as well. That's why I wore that Give Grace shirt on the thumbnail, because I'm like, I need a little grace with these 38 lessons. Number 19, always address disrespect logically, never emotionally. Always address disrespect logically, never emotionally. I think this is one of the toughest things for any of us to do. When we feel disrespected, a lot of times, due to whatever societal, reasons, the culture that we grow up in, what we see on TV, what we're accustomed to, all those things factor in. But not even really trying to focus on those, just trying to focus on a lot of times when we feel disrespected, the only thing that we feel is going to make us feel like we got a certain level of get back, or if we um, made ourselves whole again, right? When we get disrespected, sometimes we feel like somebody took a piece of us. You know what I mean? And you got to get that back. And the only way you're going to get that back is to take a piece of them. That could be from an emotional standpoint, but I've learned that the best way to get any get back or to address any disrespect is just from a logical standpoint. Think about what's going on, think about the situation. And I feel like if we move with this lesson, then a lot of times we can avoid huge problems from occurring. And a lot of times when we address disrespect logically, I think that if the result that we're trying to get to is to make that person even feel bad, or to understand how they disrespected us, to make them feel what we felt, I think a lot of times the best way is to do it from a logical standpoint, and to not react in an emotional way like perhaps they reacted in order to make us feel disrespected. So but just looking out for us first and foremost, address it, address it logically, especially when it comes to our loved ones. A lot of times, even though it may be considered a rational response, um, it could ruin relationships for a very long time, and it doesn't always have to. And by responding logically, it can give somebody who may have had an emotional reaction in disrespecting you, it can give them the proper amount of time to kind of get their thoughts together and to process the situation, for them to understand that they really did something messed up. And hopefully they're, adult enough to acknowledge those things. All right, number 20. This is definitely one of the best ones. Shout out to my homie Twan, Antoine Bethea. He wrote a book, Bet on Yourself. And if I probably had to have a favorite lesson, this would probably be it. This would probably be it. Bet on yourself, man. Bet on yourself, because if you're not willing to bet on yourself, and this is what I meant as far as that other lesson when it was the nobody owes you anything, especially if you can't provide it yourself. Imagine asking somebody else to take a chance on you that you're not willing to take on yourself. Bet on yourself. There's nothing more powerful than that. Perhaps it may put you in a compromising position where your back's against the wall, but bet on yourself. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn if you really are who you say you are, if you're really built to achieve the goals that you set out for. And if you're not, then you learn those lessons early and direct and in an impactful way that you're able to then respond accordingly, build yourself back up, and eventually get that win. So bet on yourself. Life is too short. Life is too short. We were watching this TV show last night, and it's this mother was trying to convince her kid to go, and mother and the father. I blaming the mom too much. If you saw the show, if you've seen that show Forever, dope show on Netflix. Actually, if you've never, I actually was watching this show Forever. I think that has been one of the most impactful shows that I've seen on Netflix. Y'all know I said Netflix can be the devil at times because it can distract you and herd everybody like sheep because everybody's watching it. But this show Forever, the dynamics of it, and I believe it was recorded in like 2017, or it came out in 2017 or 2018. It was just dope. And getting back to the point, the family, they wanted their son to go to Northwestern, and he ended up getting into Northwestern, and he ended up turning it down and doing a gap year to see if he can chase his dream of becoming a music engineer. And his parents, they wanted to to get him to go to Northwestern to give him the best chance of becoming successful in life. But he decided to just bet on himself, when you bet on yourself, it's like that to me is when you're going to be the most passionate about pursuing something, rather than just going along with that comfort that we talked about before. What may be the thing that makes the most sense? Nah, bet on yourself. Bet on yourself, and it also frees other people up to do the same. It frees other people up to bet on themselves, but it also frees them up to, they may be a little bit envious of you, jealous of you for you having the courage to bet on yourself. But eventually, it's going to be something that uh, I think that they can appreciate. They can appreciate, maybe root for, and they're going to be thinking about your success, whether they're thinking about it from an envious standpoint or thinking about it from a positive standpoint. Either way, they're thinking about it. And a lot of times your haters, they're thinking about your success even bigger than you are. They're thinking like, yo, this dude's gonna blow up, he's gonna do that. Put that energy out there. So either way, bet on yourself. All right, that's probably the thing that makes us, if there was some sort of immortality that we're chasing, to me, it comes from being willing to bet on yourself. So, like I told y'all, after number 20, I have to write these things down myself. So it's all good. We figure it out. So number 21. Let's move on to 21. I'll just be putting it in the chat. It doesn't take too long, so don't worry. Ew, it's Dak. Just want to thank you for checking out our video and visiting the OG Network. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give us a like. And if you're looking to join a community of inspired individuals striving for purposeful abundance, subscribe. And if you're feeling real generous, share the video with some friends and family. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.